Hello everyone, especially to you, Miss Lynn. I'm Jemary Lori Isapian. The topic that we have chosen is emigration. What is emigration? Emigration is the international movement of people away from the country where they have citizenship, usually their country of birth, in favor of a destination country where they do not have citizenship. Emigrants, often referred to as a foreign-born residents, move to a new country for several reasons, including searching for economic prosperity, job opportunities, family reunification, retirement, and better access to resources. The proportion of emigrants varies considerably from country to country, and for several reasons, some countries are easy to emigrate. In fact, some countries will actually encourage immigrants from the United States, while other countries are harder to immigrate to by comparison.
So, good morning, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. I am Gianti Mamayabay, and the assigned topic for me to discuss is all about disadvantages of immigration. So, I had listed here six disadvantages, and the first is potential negative impact on real wages. It is argued that low-skilled immigrants put downward pressure on wages. The argument is that an increase in the supply of unskilled labor enables firms to fill vacancy with lower wages than previously. So kung mas daghan ang low-skilled immigrants na possibility nga mas mugamay ang imong madawat nga money or sweldo, mas mugamay ang sweldo than previously. So the next is real GDP per capita could fall. Often supporters of immigration point how it increased real GDP, and it is true. If immigration is of low skilled and reduced that in labor markets, it will lead to a fall in real GDP per head. So, another is if mo daghan ang immigrants who had low skilled or those who not in labor markets, so dili nila field nga magtrabaho sa labor markets na ay possibility nga if it lead to a fall in real GDP sa isa ka per head sa mga trabahante per head sa real GDP. So the next is structural unemployment. Immigration could lead to some displacement of native-born workers who then experience structural unemployment. So the next is ang immigration makalid sa pag-replace sa mga daan na natrabaho sa isa ka country kung daghan ang mga immigrants nga mosulod sa isa ka country. So the next is pressure on public service. Immigration and a rise in local populations put higher pressure on social services such as schools, hospitals, roads, and public transport. Higher growth will lead to more tax revenue to enable higher spending. So pressure on public service. If daghan if there are many immigrants, it has a pressure to local public service such as schools, mas mudaghan ang population, and the public transport maglisod nagsakay kay daghanay na tapos mas na possibility nga mo taas ang pliti or bayad nimo sa pagsakay or tax. So mutaas ang tax sa revenue kasi mas mudaghan ang mga musakay. So the next is housing cost. If migrants move to areas with limited housing stocks, migration can put upward pressure on rents and house prices, reducing living standards and increasing housing poverty for both migrants and native population experience high living costs. So it has also affect for the housing cost. If ang gamay ga immigrant ga if there are immigrants who move nga sa area nga mga limited lang ang housing, ang house, makaputnig pressure sa pagbayad sa renta or sa presyo sa isa ka house. And it has a negative effect for both migrants and for those who kanang nagpuyo na dito permanently. tapos mag-clip ni housing poverty. Ma-increase ang housing poverty because of this housing cost. The next is has disharmony from rapid immigration. Well, some like a more multicultural society which occurs from immigration. Others are least welcoming of this change and feel like their culture and background is threatened by immigrants who didn't fit into their existing society. So, walay harmony sa isa kang country if rap daghanay ang immigrants kay dili sila makapit sa mga sa fit sa ito ida sa dili sila makafit sa society sa isa ka country kay dili sila parehog mga values, beliefs, or like appearance sa mga pasinuotan. So that's the dili sila magkasinabot. Disharmony from rapid immigration. So that's all, ma'am. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. This is the advantage of immigration. The immigration can give a substantial economic benefits. Then one of the economic benefits of migration is that the diversity of the population is enhanced. Then this is the 5 advantages of immigration. Number 1 is a richer and more diverse culture. And number 2, helps to reduce any labor shortage. The number 3, migrants are more prepared to make on low pay. And number 4, money sent by migrants. The number 5, migrants may return with new skills. Then there are another advantage of immigration. Then migration can improve the standard of living for people. Then through immigration, opportunities for better jobs are provided, and better education can be served through migration. Then a person can learn different culture, and social connectivity increased by migration. And this is another advantage of immigration. Developing countries benefits from remittance. Every day, migrants send money to their family members in developing countries. Then, reduction of unemployment. Migrating can have a positive impact on the country of origin. And the last one is migrants bring back skills and contact other useful tools. Migration not only lead to social and economic. So, that's all.
Your next reporter is Ms. Darren Suyasalga Palmares, and now I'm going to discuss the top countries with the highest and lowest immigrants rate. Top 10 countries with the highest number of foreign-born residents or immigrants. First is the United States. The number of immigrants here is 15,632,836. And the percent of population is 15.28%. Next is the Germany, 15,762,457, and the percent of the population here is 18.81%. Next is the Saudi Arabia, 13,454,842, and the percent of the population here is 38.65%. Next is the Russia, 11,636,911, and the percent of the population here is 7.97%. Next is the United Kingdom, 9,359,587, and the percent of the population here is 13.79%. Next is the United Arab Emirates, 8,716,332, and the percent of the population here is 88.13%. Next is the France, 8,524,876, and the percent of the population here is 13.6%. Then the last is the Canada, 8,049,323, and the percent of the population here is 21.33%. As you can see, United States is the highest number of foreign-born residents or immigrants. The number of immigrants here is 15,632,836, and the percent of the population here is 15.28%. Next is the top 10 countries with the lowest number of foreign-born residents or immigrants. First is the Tuvalu, 239, and the percent of the population is 2.3%. Next is the Niue, 588, and the percent of the population is 35.79%. Next is the Miquelon, Vatican City, 809, and the percent of the population is 100%. Next is the St. Perry and 998, and the percent of the population is 17.22%. Next is the Tokelau, 1,238, and the percent of the population here is 91.23%. Next is the Montserrat, 1,379, and the percent of the population here is 27.62%. Then the last is the Falkland Islands, 1,957, and the percent of the population is 56.24%. As you can see here, the countries that has the lowest number of foreign-born residents or immigrants is the Tuvalu, because it has the number of immigrants which is 239, and the percent of the population is 2.3%. The United States is the home to the highest number of immigrants in the world, an estimated of 50.6 million people in the United States, a bit more than 15% of the total population of 331.4 million were born in a foreign country. The number of immigrants in the U.S. has increased by at least 400% since 1965. The population of immigrants in the United States is incredibly diverse, with nearly every country in the world represented among U.S. immigrants. Mexico is the leading origin country for U.S. immigrants, accounting for more than 11 million, roughly 25% of all immigrants in the United States. Immigration, of course, played a formative role in making the U.S. the country it is today, except for those whose ancestors arrived as slaves. The majority of citizens for the Great American Melting Pot are descended from immigrants and early European settlers in particular. Perhaps the most unique entry in the top 10 is the United Arab Emirates, whose 8.7 million immigrants make up nearly 89% of the country's total population. This gives the UAE one of the world's highest proportion of immigrant residents in relation to the total national population.
Hi, my name is Rafaela Jimabayaw, and the topic that is assigned to me is the issues of immigration in the Philippines. So, is immigration an issue in the Philippines? The country is confronted with a constant and complex problem of migration, an issue that the government is struggling to solve. Well-educated Filipinos are flocking out of the country to seek better wages than they can find at home, with around 10% of the nation's population living and working abroad. So this is the main problem here, the wages that they can get here in the Philippines. Kay tungod gamay lang ang kanila makita, nangita sila ng lain na lugar, which is badi ang sahod na makatabang or makasustain sila ng needs sa kanila family. So some people find more lucrative work in Dubai, Singapore, and Taiwan. The next is, how does migration affect the Philippines? So initially intended as a temporary measure to catalyze economic development, migration is now a major contributing economic force. Since 4 decades, labor migration has had positive and negative effects on the Philippines. The majority of the Filipino migrants are deployed to the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. So ining Gulf Cooperation Council countries, amo ining mga countries na amo ining 6 Middle Eastern countries, which is the Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman. So amo yung mga lugar na mostly ang mga Filipino ga migrate or ga work. So the next is the migration during the Spanish period. So by the 16th century, Spanish colonization brought new groups of people to the Philippines, mainly Spaniards and Mexicans. There was migration of a military nature from Latin America, which is the Mexico and the Peru, to the Philippines, that composed of varying races, the Amerindian, Mestizo, and Criollo. So the nag-settled nga di sa Philippines o ga intermarried ng mga indigenous population. So amo yung this gave rise to the Filipino mestizo or individuals of mixed Austronesian and Hispanic descent. The next one is, what are the problems faced by Filipino immigrants? Problems such as increased immigration regulations, complex work environments, paperless records, new disease management concepts are some of the specific problems faced by Filipino immigrants. So it is very sabotable. So migration may affect the psychological and physical health of left behind children in two opposing ways. So amid tong mag-decrease ng time allotted sa mga ginikanan para ma-maintain ang health sa kanila children, which have an adverse effect, an augmented household income through remittance, which may have a positive effect. So that's all my report. Thank you.